We're talking about reshaping babies' skulls, and trust me, it's gonna get weird. So picture this. You're holding your newborn baby, all soft and squishy and perfect. But then you think, you know what? This kid's head just isn't quite the right shape. Let's fix that. And boom, just like that, you've entered the realm of cranial modification. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would anyone want to mess with a baby's head? Well, let me tell you, this isn't some new age hipster trend. Oh no, this practice goes way, way back. We're talking ancient civilizations, like the Mayans, the Incas, and even some Native American tribes. These folks were all about that elongated dome life. But hold on to your hats, 'cause it gets even crazier. In some cultures, having a funky-shaped noggin was like the ultimate status symbol. Imagine walking down the street, turning heads left and right, all because your skull looks like it got smooshed in a vise. Talk about making a statement. Now I can practically hear your jaws dropping through the airwaves, but stick with me here. The methods these people used to achieve their desired head shapes were downright medieval. We're talking wooden boards, tight bandages, and even rocks. Yeah, you heard me right, rocks, strapped to a baby's head, for months. Let that sink in for a second. But wait, there's more. In some parts of the world, like the ancient kingdom of Paracas in Peru, they took this skull-shaping business to a whole new level. We're talking craniums that look like they belong in a sci-fi movie. Elongated, alien-like heads that would make E.T. look downright normal. Now you might be wondering, how the heck did they pull this off? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, 'cause we're about to get into the nitty-gritty. See, babies' skulls are super malleable, like Play-Doh. So these ancient folks would start the process pretty much as soon as the kid popped out. They'd strap boards to the front and back of the baby's head, then wrap it all up tight with bandages. And we're not talking about a quick fix here. Oh no, this was a long-term commitment. We're talking months, even years of constant pressure on that little baby skull. Can you imagine? Your whole infancy spent with your head in a vise. Talk about a headache. But here's where it gets really wild. In 2018, a team of researchers from the University of Michigan did a study on some of these elongated skulls from Peru. And guess what they found? These skull shapers weren't just messing with the external shape. Oh no, they were actually changing the structure of the skull itself. I mean, we're talking about completely altering the development of a human brain here. It's like playing God with neurology. The researchers found that the modified skulls had a greater cranial vault volume, which means more space for the brain to grow. But get this, the brain wasn't just growing bigger, it was growing differently. Now, I can practically hear your minds being blown right now. But hold on to your hats, 'cause we're about to go even deeper down this rabbit hole. See, some people think that these elongated skulls aren't just the result of artificial deformation. Oh no, they believe these are the remains of an ancient alien race that once walked the earth. I know, it sounds crazy. But when you're looking at a skull that's 25% larger than a normal human skull, with strange features and inexplicable characteristics, well, let's just say it makes you wonder. But let's pump the brakes on the alien theories for a sec and get back to the cold, hard facts. The practice of skull deformation wasn't just some fringe activity. This was mainstream stuff in many ancient cultures. In fact, it was so common that in some areas, having a normal-shaped head was considered ugly or even a sign of low social status. Can you imagine living in a world where your worth as a person was judged by how weird your head looked? It's like high school all over again, but with more skull binding and less acne. Now you might be thinking, surely this crazy practice died out ages ago, right? Well, hold on to your hats, folks, 'cause I've got news for you. Believe it or not, some forms of cranial modification are still happening today. Yeah, you heard me right. In the 21st century, people are still messing with baby skulls. Take the Mangbetu people of Congo, for example. Up until the 1950s, they were still practicing head elongation. They called it lipombo, and it was considered a sign of beauty and intelligence. Just picture it. A whole society where having a head shaped like a football was the height of fashion. But it's not just in far-off lands that this is happening. Even in some parts of Europe, there are still traces of this practice. In France, for instance, there was a type of head shaping called the Toulouse deformity that persisted well into the 20th century. It involved binding a baby's head to create a flattened forehead and an elongated skull. Now, I can practically hear your jaws hitting the floor, but here's where it gets really wild. Some researchers believe that these skull modifications might actually have had some benefits. Yeah, you heard me right. There's a theory that elongating the skull could have enhanced certain cognitive abilities. I mean, think about it. If you're changing the shape of the brain, you're bound to be messing with its function, right? Some scientists speculate that the altered brain shape could have led to enhanced sensory perception or even psychic abilities. Talk about giving your kid a head start in life. But let's not get carried away here. For every potential benefit, there were plenty of risks. We're talking increased intracranial pressure, vision problems, and even brain damage. It's like playing Russian roulette with your baby's noggin. And yet, despite all these risks, people kept doing it. Generation after generation, they kept binding and shaping their babies' heads. It's enough to make you wonder, what were they thinking? Well, folks, that's where things get really interesting. See, for many of these cultures, skull deformation wasn't just about aesthetics or social status. It was deeply tied to their spiritual beliefs and their understanding of the universe. Take the ancient Mayans, for example. They believed that an elongated head brought them closer to the spirit world. It was like a physical manifestation of their connection to the divine. Can you imagine? Altering your child's very anatomy in the hopes of giving them a spiritual edge? But it wasn't just the Mayans. All around the world, from the Huns of ancient Europe to the Melanesians of the South Pacific, people were reshaping their skulls for all sorts of reasons. Some believed it made them more beautiful. Others thought it made them smarter or more powerful. And here's where it gets really wild. In some cultures, different types of skull deformation were used to distinguish between social classes. It was like a permanent bony ID card right on top of your head. Talk about wearing your status on your sleeve. Or in this case, your skull. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds completely bonkers. And you're right, it does. But here's the thing. To the people practicing it, this was totally normal. It was just part of their culture, as natural as piercing ears or getting tattoos is for many of us today. But let's take a step back for a second and really think about what this means. We're talking about a practice that fundamentally altered the physical development of human beings. A practice that was so widespread, so deeply ingrained in so many cultures, that it persisted for thousands of years. I mean, just try to wrap your mind around that for a second. Generations upon generations of people, all choosing to reshape their children's heads. It's like a massive, millennia-long experiment in human modification. And the really mind-blowing part? We're still finding new evidence of this practice all the time. In 2018, archaeologists in Croatia discovered a necropolis with several elongated skulls dating back to the 5th century AD. These skulls were so extremely deformed that at first the researchers thought they must be fake. But nope, they were 100% real. These were actual human beings who walked the earth with skulls that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Can you imagine meeting one of these people? It would be like encountering an alien right here on Earth. Speaking of aliens, let's circle back to that theory for a second. Because believe it or not, there are still people today who insist that some of these elongated skulls are evidence of extraterrestrial life. They point to skulls like the infamous Star Child skull, discovered in Mexico in the 1930s, as proof of alien visitation. Now, I know what you're thinking. Aliens? Really? But hear me out. When you're faced with a skull that's 50% larger than a normal human skull, with strange features and unexplained characteristics, well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Of course, most scientists dismiss these alien theories outright. They point to the overwhelming evidence that these skulls are the result of intentional deformation, not extraterrestrial DNA. But still, the fact that we're even having this debate in the 21st century just goes to show how mind-boggling this whole practice really is. But let's get back to the humans for a second. Because the really fascinating thing about skull deformation isn't just the physical results, it's what it tells us about human culture and psychology. Think about it. What would drive a society to collectively decide that deforming their children's skulls was a good idea? What kind of cultural pressures would have to be in place to make that seem not just acceptable, but desirable? It's a window into the incredible diversity of human beliefs and practices, a reminder that what seems completely bizarre to us might have been totally normal to someone else. It's like that old saying, the past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. But here's the really wild part. In some ways, we're not so different from our skull-deforming ancestors. I mean, think about it. We might not be binding our babies' heads, but we're still obsessed with changing our appearances. From plastic surgery to body modification, we're constantly trying to alter our physical forms to fit some ideal. In a way, you could argue that our modern beauty standards are just as arbitrary and potentially harmful as the practice of skull deformation. I mean, at least an elongated skull doesn't require constant dieting and trips to the gym, right? But jokes aside, the practice of skull deformation raises some serious ethical questions. Questions that are still relevant today as we grapple with issues of body modification and cultural practices that affect children. I mean, where do we draw the line between cultural tradition and child abuse? How much right do parents have to alter their children's bodies? These are questions that societies around the world are still wrestling with, whether it's about circumcision, ear piercing, or more extreme forms of body modification. And let's not forget the potential long-term effects of these practices. While the people who practice skull deformation clearly thought they were doing something beneficial, we now know that it could have had serious neurological consequences. It's a stark reminder of how our actions can have unintended consequences, especially when it comes to something as complex and delicate as the human brain. It makes you wonder what practices we engage in today that future generations might look back on with horror. But perhaps the most mind-bending aspect of all this is the way it challenges our very concept of what it means to be human. I mean, think about it. We tend to assume that the human form is fixed, that we all basically look the same underneath our surface differences. But the practice of skull deformation shows us that this isn't necessarily true. It reveals the incredible plasticity of the human body, its ability to be shaped and molded in dramatic ways. It's like we're walking, talking, living sculptures. And in a way, isn't that kind of beautiful? I mean, sure, the idea of binding a baby's head might make us cringe. But there's something awe-inspiring about the human drive to transform ourselves, to push the boundaries of what's possible with our physical forms. It's a testament to our creativity, our ingenuity, and yes, sometimes our folly. But above all, it's a reminder of the incredible diversity of human experience. A reminder that no matter how weird or wild something might seem to us, somewhere, sometime, it was someone's normal. So the next time you look in the mirror and wish you could change something about your appearance, just remember, at least you're not strapping boards to your baby's head. Although, who knows, maybe in 1,000 years, people will look back on our beauty practices with the same mix of fascination and horror that we feel when we contemplate skull deformation. And isn't that a mind-bending thought? That someday, our descendants might look at pictures of us and wonder, what on earth were they thinking? Just as we do when we see those elongated skulls from ancient Peru. But that, my friends, is the beauty of human culture. It's weird, it's wild, and it's constantly evolving. And who knows? Maybe someday, having a perfectly round head will be considered hopelessly old-fashioned. After all, stranger things have happened in the long and twisted history of human body modification. So there you have it, folks. The bizarre, fascinating, and sometimes terrifying world of skull deformation. A practice that spanned continents and millennia, that transformed human anatomy and challenged our very concept of what it means to be human. It's a reminder that the human story is far stranger and more complex than we often realize. That beneath the surface of our everyday lives lies a vast ocean of cultural practices and beliefs, some beautiful, some disturbing, but all undeniably human. So the next time you see someone with an unusually shaped head, well, maybe think twice before you stare. After all, you never know. They might just be the descendant of an ancient skull-binding tradition. Or who knows, maybe even an alien. In this weird and wonderful world of ours, anything's possible. And with that mind-bending thought, I'll leave you to ponder the strange and twisted paths of human culture. Until next time, keep your minds open and your skulls, well, whatever shape you prefer them to be. Over and out.